Well, this is interesting. This is very interesting in a lot of ways. This is the Lorca No. 2 chronograph. Not that this is the second chronograph from Lorca, but rather that this is the second watch from Lorca. Maybe you remember, I did a review about the Lorca No. 1, the GMT, and I thought that was a pretty cool watch. A 36mm classically styled GMT on a bracelet. Good looking, surprisingly good looking for the first watch from a new brand. I don't know, I guess I expect new brands' watches to start a little unrefined and improve as they go. I'm hoping that the same applies to YouTubers' videos also. These videos will get good someday, but there's not really much I can do about it, honestly. And I think Lorca started pretty strong with that GMT, but now what about this chronograph? Well, let's find out. Maybe the first thing I should tell you is that this watch is available for pre-order today, October 1st. I'm not saying that you should buy this, I'm just saying that if you're interested, you should know that it's now available. But if you missed the chance today, it's okay because you can probably get one later. Lorca is not limiting the production of this watch in total, but it's just producing them in batches. 300 in this first run, with the first 150 pieces being individually numbered. What we have here is a 37mm chronograph in a steel case that's 46mm long from lug to lug, about 14mm thick if you include the big sapphire crystal, which I do. The case itself is 11.5mm thick. It has 20mm lugs, 20mm drilled lugs. It's got a bi-directional 12-hour bezel. I'll talk more about that in a minute. It has 100 meters of water resistance, and it uses the Sellita SW510 manually wound Elaboré grade movement with 63 hours of power reserve. The watch has a 2-year warranty and $2,650 is the price. Pre-orders begin today, and the watches will ship in April or May of next year. I find this size just delightful on my wrists. 37mm. You think, at least I thought, that it might be a little too small. But there are two reasons that I think make this case size ideal on my, 7-inch wrist. That's right. First, between the 14mm thickness and the 20mm bracelet, this does not feel or even look small. It's a funny thing that I noticed when I first started putting straps on my 36mm Rolex Explorer. Watches look and feel bigger on bracelets. The second thing that makes this size work is the style of the watch. I'd say this Lorca No. 2, like the No. 1, has a mid-century aesthetic. Mid-20th century, I mean. We're headed into the middle of the 21st century right now. I wanted to make it clear to all the viewers watching this video in about 100 years from now, all those people who survived the great authorized dealer wars of 2078. They'll know what I'm talking about. See, watches were generally smaller in the mid-20th century. Smaller, more refined, even sports watches, like this, often had a bit of dressiness to them. Dauphine hands, polished chamfers, maybe even a guilloche bezel. And I think all of these elements work really well here, especially on this beads of rice bracelet. That's often what this style is called because if you eat it, you'll be hungry again in like 30 minutes. And what helps make this bracelet super comfortable is the adjustment system built into the clasp. It's a push-button system that I found surprisingly refined, really well made. Now I wish I could adjust the length without taking this off my wrist. I always want that, but this one feels really good for a system on a watch from such a new and small brand. I guess that's the case for a lot of this watch. It's weirdly nice for a brand that you've probably never heard of. A lot of careful attention to detail, similar to my exquisitely executed editing and videography skills, always on point. Most often on a chronograph watch, you'll find something like a tachymeter on the bezel, a scale that helps you precisely time whatever it is that people time, like how long it takes before they want a second watch after buying a first watch, about 53 seconds on average. But on this watch, the bezel is even more useful to me. This is a bi-directional 12-hour bezel. The main use of that is to track a second time zone. Here on America's left coast, I'm 8 hours off of London. So if I want to track the time there, I rotate the bezel so that 8 is at the top of the dial, and then I read the hour hand via the bezel. It's 2:45 here, so you can see the hour hand. It's pointing to 10:45 in London. And sure, you could just do the math, but doing math would make you a dweeb, and you're not a dweeb, are you? The movement inside the watch is the Sellita SW510, the manually wound version. It has 63 hours of power reserve, running seconds at 9 o'clock, chronograph minutes at 3 o'clock, and chronograph hours at 6 o'clock. I emailed with the owner of Lorca, Jesse, about this movement. I wanted to get some info, and Jesse told me that even though Sellita assured him that the movements would be accurate, Lorca independently tests each watch for accuracy to plus or minus 5 seconds a day in the upward facing position. And even though you can't see the movement has Sellita soigné finishing, which means it has Côte de Genève but no blued screws. Again, you'll just have to trust Lorca on that one. And trust is an interesting aspect of this watch. $2,600 is a lot of money, especially to spend on a watch brand that you have little or no experience with. And I know some people who wouldn't even think about dropping that kind of cash on a watch from a newer brand. And I also know a lot of people, generally people with a lot of experience collecting watches, who would gladly take a small risk on a watch they really like. So I can't tell you if this watch is going to be worth it for you, but what I can tell you is that in my experience with watches around this price, this one seems about right, even like a good deal. With the finishing and the bracelet, the materials, and the 2-year warranty, $2,650 seems good. So sorry about that. Now some of you have to add this watch to your list. But maybe you'll get lucky. Maybe it'll be sold out by the time you go to buy it. My thoughts and prayers are with you.